And do you think that most like CEOs and C-level managers, do they lack this ability to define the box differently, or they just don't have the structures and the way and maybe, you know, like the methods in order to do so?
So my experience with working with C-level is that it's not a question of capability or intelligence or even incompetence to some level, but it's rather the biases that come with their position and success. So what I usually tell, and I learned that or read it from late David Casey, is competent employees can make even the shittiest of strategies work. So if your employees want to make something work, they will make it work, even if your description wasn't perfect, if your organization isn't perfect, if your structures aren't perfect. So what happens is that after a decade or 2 decades or more of success, the C-level or executive, they start to believe that it was their decisions, their expertise that led to all the success. Yeah. They slowly start forgetting because they're starting to get more and more disconnected unless they have a very, very strong peer relationship and are constantly inviting this type of feedback. They lose this connection. And that is where, for example, people like you and me, Eddie, come into role, because when we come as outsider experts, it's easy to see and point a finger. Listen, you know you need to do A, B, and C. You just told me that you need to do A, B, and C, but you're doing D, E, and F. Why? Yeah. And we start the conversation from there. So it's usually what I like to say, you know, holding a mirror and saying what you told me isn't what's reflected in reality. So let's start the conversation. Why is that so?
Yeah, but you know, it's really interesting that you defined it as like they're so sure of themselves because they had so many successes to the point that they were where they got to, that sometimes even like putting a question mark is hard for them. So it's like defining themselves within the organization first. Like, yeah, this is what we've done. We've been successful with that. And maybe it's not due to our talents, it's too hard work with people that we work with, or so many collaborations created that. But more than that, I could be more than what I describe myself to be right now. I could do things a bit different. I could take maybe more risk. I could learn new things that I don't know currently. And I could think more than this revenue, like this quarter revenue, the next quarter revenue. I can think even further that. So it's like redefining actually, how do you see yourself as a leader within the organization? Do you agree on that one? Does it make sense?
It makes absolute sense. So once the conversation gets started, then it's definitely for every individual. So I like to say everybody in an organization should have the right to innovate, but should not be forced to innovate, because you know there are often conversations to innovation that are echoing the conversations around quality. So quality should be everyone's job. Yes, everyone is responsible for quality, but that doesn't necessarily mean that everybody is measured on quality, unfortunately. When it comes to innovation, some people are trying to say the same. Well, innovation is everybody's job. Yes, sure, but I would go in the direction that everybody should have the right to propose ideas and ask, can I work on this idea? But I wouldn't go to say to force everybody to do that. And tying that into our conversation around conservatives, executives, not conservatives.
That was a Freudian thing.
So going to there are different type of people. Some do prefer a little bit of rigidity, and people will say, well, we need to break them, we need to show them creativity and frolicking and running in the field. I'm like, why? Let's play to people's strength. We can help them see differently, but I don't think that my job is to change you fundamentally as a person. What I always see as my job is to help you to become better executive, better specifically in innovation, because that's what you and I specialize in. So that is where I see it. But I don't try to force them to become something that maybe they don't want to be. And that comes from my fundamental belief. When I approach my clients and everything, I don't assume they're broken. Like some approaches assume that people are broken, that they're incompetent, that they don't understand what they need to do. No, I go it from, you're a successful person, you're a successful executive. The results are behind you. but now this might not be working as well as it was before, or you want to do something a little bit better. So let's start building on strengths. And there's a lot of also academic theory supporting similar approach. So kind of strength building has much better returns than kind of trying to avert weaknesses. So weakness is just avoid doing it, but don't try to transform it into a strength. But your strengths, try to exemplify them even more. So that is.
And
it felt a bit rambly.
Yeah. And I think the same goes to your employees. So some of your employees are really built for innovation. So they're curious, they want to know more, they want to do more, and they want to try new things. And some of them are not. And that's just fine, because the ones who are not innovative are the ones who are doing exactly what's needed. They're very like built for processes. The current processes is supported by them, and they're doing their work really, really well, but they're not good innovators. You just need to find the right processes and people and structure, to take these talented, curious, innovative people and give them the framework to work. And you need to find them, of course. Is the same way you find this in yourself. You need to find the right people in your organization in order to make it work, which is sometimes challenging, but they need to do it. But they know their people, I guess. So maybe it's not that hard.
Well, that's probably what you said. Less is probably a big assumption.
They don't
Especially
know.
the bigger the organization, the less likely is that you really know what your people are able of doing. So, for example, one financial institution that I work with, it's Norwegian companies. Big Norwegian companies aren't big in a global sense. When you say like big company in Spain, it might be 100,000 employees, but big company in Norway is like around 20,000 employees. So much lesser scale. But also, we don't know that many people. So if I had Adi in my organization, unless there's some connection between you and me, either through an acquaintance within the company, or maybe we accidentally had a lunch, or you had a talk that I attended, it's unlikely that I will know that I have an innovation expert in my company. So what companies know is what's limited to their people. Companies are dead. Organizations are dead. It is what people in organizations know. And if people in organization don't know about each other's skill and competence, we cannot say that organization as a whole is competent in something. And that is a big challenge. And I usually see companies approach it one way, which I don't think works that well, or works well for just a specific case. And that is they decide, okay, we want to innovate. There's a big change. A competitor is moving in. We need to respond. And then they go really aggressive. Let's hire an external HR agency. They will help us find internal talent. They will also help us find external talent. We are going to, use the whole HR process in order to set up an innovation team, and then give them 200 million or 20 million, whatever, and they need to counter this. But everything that you said before, I think, is a better approach, which I would summarize as companies need to continuously create space for innovation. And when I say space for innovation, I'm not just talking about physical space, which is usually the least important thing and the most visible thing, like Post-it notes, colored walls, nobody cares about it. But creating space in the sense of incentives, like why should I innovate? Why should I break my back to create a new revenue stream for organization to get a tap on my back? So incentives can be anything from stock to bonuses or non-financial benefits. So everything is possible, but there needs to be an incentive structure. So that's one. But also support systems like access to HR, access to legal, access to IT, access to all these functions that exist within an organization, but cannot be used by average Joe. Not even executives can freely use that. So a head of business unit, even though he or she wields a lot of power, can rarely just go to group IT or group procurement and say, well, this is what I'm gonna buy. They can just fire back, follow the process.
Yeah.
Right. You want to hire a startup, follow the process. We don't care. And the process is for big vendors.